Hello everybody and welcome back. I hope you have been enjoying your epoxy overview and have learned something in the process. I think in the last episode we basically wrapped up the implementation and got everything up to speed from where it was before with the recycler view implementation. So now I'm just going to go ahead and show you how easy it is to go ahead and maybe make some things or add different view types, right? We already have our loading view type. And then now we're going to go ahead and have our maybe a header view type and then an item view type, and all of that is going to be managed for us in Epoxy. We don't have to really do much other than properly structure our data accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead and create. Okay, yeah, not going for anything too crazy here. Just want to show you like a little bit of a different view. Then we're going to go ahead and create another data class here that says it's going to be the header epoxy model. And we're going to go ahead and take the header text, which is going to be of type string, and that's about it. And we're going to have this one again be a view binding Kotlin model with the epoxy model header binding and the layout file being epoxy model header. Then we're going to go ahead and bind, and we're going to have our header text view dot text equals our header text. Boom. Okay, so if we take a look at the data here, we have Sali starts with an S, Zagreb, Zadar with a Z, P, K, D, S. So let's just do an S or a D. So, this is just going to simulate some kind of logic here, but let's just say first, our first group is going to be the attractions. Nope. Filter if it dot title dot starts with an S or it dot title starts with a D. Okay, so we just created the first group here that is a list of the attractions whose title starts with either an S or a D, and then we're going to go ahead and just use this to help describe the different sections in our UI, if you will. So I'm going to add the header epoxy model. The header text is just going to say, let's say, recently viewed. Then the ID is going to be a header1, and then add to this. Then we're going to say first group, actually exactly what that is. And then we're just going to go ahead and take another header here and say all attractions. All right, let's just go ahead and run this and see how it looks. So we just have one standard list right now, but at this point, after it loads, we should see something a little bit more elegant. So we have our loading state. All right, so you can see here, it's not really all that glorious because of the, where is it? Because of the item decorations. We're just going to remove that and rerun things because this kind of looks a little weird now. But now you can see that there's a recently viewed title here, and then it has your Sali, Dubrovnik, and Split here, and then we have all of our attractions here, and then again we have the rest of the list here. So might look a little funky here. Especially once we remove those the little dividers and stuff like that, and maybe we would need to make this one have let's just do that here. Let's make the background on this not black but not star. Let's do AA0000. AA, let's do 66. Sure. So we've provided a slightly different color here to our header thing, our header model, just to kind of separate it a little bit. Not really the most glorious thing to look at again, but just furthering the point that it's super easy to describe now or add in different view types and explain how things are going to look just based on the data. If you're confused by this, the way I'm setting this real quick is the ARGB, so to define the color. So A is 2, and then R, and then G, and then B, to be the red, green, blue, right? So if we put this to Fs, it should be red with a 2 on the alpha, so we can go ahead and remove that, and that's like solid red. But once you put a different number in front there, that controls the alpha value, so that's why it kind of seems like it's a weird gray. It's actually just solid black with a with a little bit of alpha applied to it. So fun fact for you there. But where are we in the controller? You can see here how easy or how simple it is to describe your how simple it is to describe your UI here based on the data, right? So you have your header model here that says recently viewed. It's right here. We add that to the controller, so it's the first thing that we add. Boom. Then we go through our first group. We find or we loop through all of the elements in our first group, and we put them into the attraction epoxy model, which are these things that we've built, which makes sense that it's solid, Dubrovnik, and then split. And then you have your header epoxy model here that says all attractions, and here it is. And then you go through the entire list here and add them all to the attractions epoxy model, and then the entire list is down here like it normally was. So should be pretty obvious here how this, the linear approach of how this code runs right here is how your UI is going to end up looking. And so that is super powerful. That is just so nice to have, and that is the new wave of how Android is going to be building the UIs of their applications with the introduction of Compose, which we will get into in a little bit. It's still very new, so I still have a good amount of learning to do on it, but it is more in this family of how to describe your layout, where it's a much more linear, composable fashion. You could have something here that says if first group dot size equals 3, add another view for some reason, and then in this case there are 3 elements in here, so the view that you end up adding would come in between this recently viewed and then this one here. So it's just a brilliant way to kind of describe your UI, because if for some reason we add a new element into the attractions list that now starts with an S as well, and now there's 4 things in the list, there's this view would not end up being rendered, because the logic says, well, if there's 3, show it, and so now there's 4, so we don't show it. So there's a lot of flexibility that you have within this build models function to really define the UI in response to how your data is structured, and that is just unbelievably convenient for you as a developer as you really start building more complex screens or whatever the case is. Last thing I'll note on that is that there is actually, instead of add to, you can see that there is another function here called the add if, and so you can very easily, without having to wrap things around an if statement and blah blah blah, you could just have that additional condition here to kind of make your life a little bit easier. So let's say you were going to add this, you know, let's just say, I don't know, something special, right? If you had this kind of a logic here, you could just say add if your first group dot size equals 3, and then you can condense all this down, right? So now it just becomes even easier to read and simpler to see your UI. And so you add your header, and then your something special header will be added if this is true to this particular controller. So, you know, there's just a whole lot of flexibility that Epoxy or that Airbnb has given you with this framework. So that's why I wanted to introduce it to you. It's definitely going to be the way that we're going to be building lists in the future. And then it'll actually just lend itself nicely once we get to compose. The thought process is the exact same. The syntax is quite different, but the thought process of, you know, basically defining your UI in a linear fashion is exactly what compose is going to force you, or the way that it's going to force you to think. So might as well train ourselves now and you know, get used to it at this moment. So I think this basically wraps up our epoxy introduction, and honestly it probably also wraps up this season a little bit. I think we've covered a tremendous amount here. Actually, I know we've covered a tremendous amount here, so I would appreciate a like or subscription to the channel on, you know, just to show feedback and provide you know, some input on if you're enjoying the content and if it's becoming helpful for you. I know that there is a lot of stuff that's happening under the hood, and some of the stuff little wavy hand magic, so don't worry, things will get ironed out over time if you stick with the channel. And you know, seriously, if you're getting into Android development for the first time and this is the content you're exposed to, just know that you're being exposed to some you know, industry standard libraries, industry standard architectures, a very, you know, positive or forward facing outlook on how things should be built, and really you're getting hopefully a full, comprehensive and professional approach to building an application. So I think I already have something lined out for the next season that we're going to go ahead and start, but it's going to become a little bit more of a practical application that hopefully you can even have on your device. I know I'm going to, because I find myself, I'm going to be solving a problem that I run into all too frequently. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this here. I'm just going to say final commit, completed the epoxy implementation and added a header view model. Let's just go view, I don't want it to be confusing. Commit and push, and that should be all good. I'm going to leave this to do here. If you've ripped down the project and want to do it yourself, go ahead, have fun. Follow basically what we've done here in the past to make something. I think it's pretty straightforward here, you know, what you would end up showing in the empty state or something like that, maybe a retry ability or a little button call to action or something along those lines, but I'll leave that to you if you want. It's basically going to function the exact same as how this loading view looks, so I'm not going to you know, beat a dead horse there. But thank you for sticking with me. If you've watched this entire season, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you've gotten a lot out of it. I know that it's some really solid content going out there, so I hope that you can also see that and get that as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to see some subscriptions, and you know, let's just keep on going with this thing. I will catch you in the next one, where we're going to go ahead and build an application that I'm going to use on a daily, if not weekly basis. So I'm quite excited for that, and hopefully you are too. So thanks again for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.